Stories at work.
Today we're diving into a dramatized story from the world of IT and project delivery, about how, just 10 minutes before a client meeting, I accidentally overheard a project manager confess to something. Stories at work. I was standing outside the conference room with my laptop open, pretending to review the agenda, when I heard my project lead whisper, "I can't walk into that meeting and lie again." There was a pause, heavy, like someone had just unplugged the office noise. Then she said the sentence that made my stomach drop. "I changed the numbers, the timeline, the test results, all of it, so the client would sign." I didn't barge in. I didn't confront her. I just stood there, very still, because I knew something most people forget in corporate life. The meeting isn't where the damage happens. The paper trail is. The day started like a normal delivery day. Too many calendars, too much coffee, not enough slack in the schedule. Our company, Lattice North, sold enterprise workflow modernization, which is a polite way of saying we took old systems, promised miracles, and tried to land somewhere short of disaster. I was the engagement analyst on the Hawthorne Harbor project, one of those mid-sized financial firms that wanted a new client onboarding platform, tighter access controls, and cleaner audit reporting. Hawthorne didn't want flashy. They wanted boring and safe. That was why they hired us. My project lead was Mireya Sloan. Mireya wasn't loud. She didn't do the motivational speeches or the fake smiles. She was polished in a way that made executives lean in and assume she had everything handled. She kept her hair pinned, her voice low, her decks clean, and her status updates short. People trusted her because she made chaos look tidy, including me. For months, the rhythm was stable. I documented requirements, tracked risks, kept meeting notes, logged approvals, and wrote the weekly delivery recap that clients actually read. Mireya ran the room. When she said, "We're on track," everyone believed it. Then the client moved our big milestone meeting forward. It was supposed to be next week. Demo plus go-live readiness decision. Hawthorne's procurement lead, Owen Klein, emailed, "Leadership is in town Friday. We want to decide on expansion scope. Please be prepared." Expansion scope meant one thing: money. It also meant scrutiny. If Hawthorne signed, they'd fund Phase 2. If they didn't, they'd freeze spend and make us defend every invoice like we were on trial. Mireya called a quick internal huddle. Just 3 of us: her, me, and our solution architect, Rafiq Mardin. She didn't look worried. She looked controlled. "Friday is a signing meeting," she said. "We go in confident." Rafiq blinked. "Confident is fine. Are we stable enough for that demo?" "Will be," Mireya replied. I watched her hands. She wasn't fidgeting, but her thumb pressed into the side of her ring finger, over and over like she was counting seconds. After the huddle, she asked me to stay behind. "Calder," she said, "send me the latest risk register and the testing summary." "Sure, same format as usual." "Cleaner," she said, "no long explanations." That was new. The whole point of a risk register is the explanation. I smiled anyway. Got it. Back at my desk, I pulled the testing summary from our shared drive. The document was mine originally. I kept it honest. Integration tests were mostly fine, but the identity and access module had intermittent failures. The data migration script worked, but only if you ran it in a specific sequence. The demo path was stable if you didn't wander off the happy route. That's normal in enterprise work. The difference is how you frame it. I attached the file and sent it. 5 minutes later, it came back, same file name, updated by Mireya. I opened it and felt the temperature in my chest change. The failures were softened into minor inconsistencies. The migration caveat was reworded as validated approach. The biggest risk, privileged role assignment timing, was moved into an appendix. It wasn't a lie in a single sentence. It was a lie in aggregate. I stared at the track changes. Mireya had rewritten my caution into confidence. I told myself it was normal executive messaging. Clients didn't need every bump. We could fix it in the next sprint. Then I noticed one line that wasn't phrasing. It was a number, a completion estimate. She had moved a date forward by 2 weeks, and she had removed the note that explained why the earlier date wasn't supported. I stood up and walked to her office. She was on a call, door half closed, nodding without speaking. When she got off, she gestured for me to enter. "You saw the edits," she said, like she'd been waiting. "I did," I replied carefully. "Some of those items aren't messaging. They're constraints." Mireya exhaled once, measured. "Hawthorne wants certainty. They want accuracy," I said. Her eyes held mine. "Certainty first, accuracy after." That sentence landed wrong. I didn't argue. Not because I agreed, because I needed to understand what had shifted inside her. I walked out and sat back down. I pulled up the calendar invite for Friday. Go live readiness plus expansion decision. I opened our internal project notes and started reading through older threads, looking for the first place the story started bending, and that's when I saw it. A forwarded email from finance, 2 months ago, buried in a chain. Booking target for Hawthorne Harbor must close before quarter end. Not a request, a directive. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles. In corporate work, you can feel the moment. A project stops being about delivery and becomes about optics. Friday wasn't a milestone meeting, it was a performance, and Mireya had just told me my job was to help keep the stage lights on. Thursday afternoon, the day before the meeting, Mireya did something I had never seen her do. She pulled me into a small room and shut the door like we were discussing layoffs. "Calder," she said, "I need you aligned tomorrow." "I am," I answered, aligned with facts. Her jaw tightened a fraction, aligned with the narrative. There it was again, narrative, like we were writing a show. I kept my voice steady. "If we oversell, Hawthorne will find out in week 1. Mireya looked down at her laptop, then back up. "Hawthorne is already half committed. Owen wants this to work. We just need his leadership team to sign." "And if the system stumbles?" "We'll patch," she said. "We always patch." I wanted to say patching is not the same as trust. Instead, I asked the question that mattered. "Who told you to move the completion date?" She didn't blink. I updated it. "Why?" She paused, too long for a simple answer. "Because it's what they need to see." I felt irritation sharpen into something colder. "They," I said. "Who is they?" Mireya leaned back. "Don't turn this into a courtroom." I almost laughed. "You already did. You just want me to stop asking questions." Her eyes narrowed. "You're good at documentation, Calder. That's why you're here. But don't confuse notes with leadership." That hit the part of me that had stayed quiet for years. I wasn't the charismatic one. I wasn't the loud one. I was the one who made things defensible. And now I was being told that skill only mattered when it served someone else's story. I stood up. "I'll support the meeting, but I'm not putting my name on altered reporting." Mireya's voice stayed calm. "Your name isn't on it. Mine is." She opened the door. Conversation over. Back at my desk, Rafik messaged me privately. "Rafik, you look tense. What's going on?" Me. "The deck got polished." Rafik. "Polished how?" Me. "Dates, testing, risks moved around." Rafik. "That's not polish, that's paint." He was right. And the worst part was how normal it felt for a moment. Like I was the naive one for caring. That evening, I didn't go home at my usual time. I stayed and built myself a clean folder. Not a dramatic folder, not a revenge folder, a due diligence folder. I exported the original testing summary with time-stamped version. History. The edited copy Mireya sent back, the risk register before and after edits. The email from finance about booking targets. Our sprint metrics that showed the access module failures. The meeting notes where Hawthorne explicitly said, "No surprises in week 1. I wasn't planning to blow anything up. I was planning to survive whatever came next. Because once someone decides to sell a version of the truth, the next step is picking a scapegoat, when the truth shows up anyway. Around 9 that night, as I was packing my bag, a message popped up from Mireia. Meet me 10 minutes before the client call, outside the conference room. No, please. No context. Just an instruction, and that was just the beginning. I drove home with the radio off, jaw tight, thinking about how quickly a project can turn into a loyalty test. At midnight, I checked my work phone again. Another message from Mireia. Tomorrow, if they ask about testing, defer to me. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Defer to her meant let her answer with the revised story. It meant silence was the price of being aligned. I put the phone down and tried to sleep. I didn't sleep much, because in my head, Friday was already playing out. The client signs. The system stumbles. Mireia says, we had concerns, but Calder's testing summary looked strong. My documentation becomes a weapon against me, and the unfairness of it sat in my chest like a stone. Friday morning, the office felt too bright. Everyone was dressed like it mattered. Polished shoes, pressed shirts, nervous jokes. The conference room had that glass and steel look companies love because it makes people feel controlled. At the center of the table, a single speakerphone waited like a judge. I got there early and stood in the hallway, laptop tucked under my arm, breathing slow. Then I heard Mireia. Her voice carried through the crack in the door. Low, tight. I can't walk into that meeting and lie again. I froze. A second voice responded. Someone on a call. I couldn't hear the words, but I caught the tone. Impatient, dismissive. Mireia spoke again, sharper this time. You told me to move the date. You told me to smooth the testing. I did it. But I'm not taking the fall if it goes wrong. My throat went dry, so it wasn't just her. She had been pushed. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt something worse. Clarity. Because if someone above her had ordered the story, then the machine was bigger than one person's judgment. And machines don't apologize. They allocate blame. The door opened and Mireia stepped out, then stopped when she saw me. For a moment, she looked like a person who had just been caught holding a broken glass. Her expression hardened into professionalism. How much did you hear? She asked. Enough, I replied. She stared at the carpet like it held answers. Calder, I didn't want you involved. You already involved me, I said, and my voice didn't shake. You edited my work, she swallowed. I thought I could carry it. Carry it to where? I asked. A signature. Mireia's eyes flicked up. We are minutes from a decision meeting. Owen has his leadership team on. If this deal stalls. If it stalls, finance gets angry, I finished. If it goes through and fails, delivery gets blamed. Her shoulders slumped a fraction, and for the first time I saw the pressure line under her calm. I didn't know it yet, she said quietly, but I'd been trading my name for time. And time runs out. I studied her. Who's on the other side of that call? Mireia hesitated. Garrick Voss. The name landed like a weight. Garrick was our regional director. Smooth voice, expensive watch. The kind of leader who talked about velocity and never touched a ticket system. He was also known for one thing, clean outcomes at any cost. Mireia saw the understanding in my face and nodded once. He said Hawthorne has to close before quarter end, she said. He said everyone wins if we get the signature. He said delivery can tighten it up after. And if it breaks? Mireia's lips pressed together. He said we shouldn't sound uncertain. I felt the break happen inside me. Not dramatic, not loud, just a switch flipping. I had spent years thinking my job was to keep projects stable. But the truth was, my job was to keep myself defensible inside unstable projects. I opened my laptop. What are you going to do in there? Mireia looked at the conference room door like it was a cliff. I don't know. I nodded slowly. Then here's what I'm going to do. I pulled up my folder, the controlled exports. My hands were calm. My mind was sharp. I'm not ambushing anyone, I said. But if they ask me a direct question, I'll answer with what I documented. Mireia's eyes widened. Calder? If we go in and sell a fantasy, I continued, we deserve the consequences. Hawthorne deserves the truth before they sign, and I deserve not being used as padding. Mireya's throat worked. Garrick will destroy you. Maybe, I said, but the paper trail will not. Silence sat between us. Thick. Then Mireya did something that surprised me. She nodded. Send me your folder, she said. Not to use against you, to keep us both from being erased. I emailed it to her. No dramatics in the subject line, just project artifacts, controlled copies. She looked at her phone when it landed, then met my gaze. Whatever happens, she said, you were the only person here acting like this is a profession. I didn't thank her. Compliments in moments like that feel like traps. The conference room door opened again. Rafiq poked his head out. We're live in 2, he said. Mireya inhaled once and stepped forward. I followed. And then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong, fell behind us as we walked into the room. Owen Klein's face appeared on the screen first. Neat haircut, neutral smile, the look of someone trained to buy things without getting emotionally attached. Beside him were 2 Hawthorne executives, Saskia Wren, the chief financial officer, and Byron Hale, head of risk. Byron didn't smile. He watched. That's the kind of person you never want to mislead. Mireya opened with the usual. Progress recap, key wins, client partnership, all the phrases companies use like insulation. Then Owen leaned forward. Before we discuss expansion, I want clarity on readiness, specifically access controls and audit reporting. My pulse stayed steady. That was the exact place the story was weakest. Mireya nodded. Of course. We're in strong shape. Byron cut in calm and sharp. I'm going to ask plainly. Are privilege roles assigning correctly on first pass? And is the audit log complete without manual adjustment? The room tightened. Even Rafiq stopped typing. Mireya glanced at her laptop. Then for half a second she looked at me. A small look. A decision point. I stayed still. Owen added, We've had vendors tell us things were stable. Then week 1 became chaos. Mireya opened her mouth, and I could almost hear Garrick Voss in her head, telling her not to sound uncertain. Then Mireya did something I didn't expect. She didn't lie. She said, There have been intermittent failures in privileged assignment timing. We have mitigations in place and a fix in progress. Rafiq's eyes flicked to her like she'd just kicked a chair across the room. Byron's gaze didn't change. Thank you. What about audit completeness? Mireya hesitated. That hesitation was all Byron needed. He turned his eyes to me. Calder, he said, reading my name from the invite roster. Your role is documentation and testing summary, correct? Yes, I replied. Do you stand behind the readiness summary provided this week? This was the moment the machine tries to make you complicit. I felt the heat of everyone's attention. Mireya held her breath. I answered evenly. I stand behind my original summary. I do not stand behind edits I did not author. Silence hit hard. Owen blinked. Edits? Mireya's face went pale, then set. She didn't interrupt me. Byron leaned back slightly. Explain. I didn't rant. I didn't moralize. I did what I always do. I reported. There are 2 versions, I said. My original includes the intermittent privilege timing failures, the migration sequencing constraint, and the current demo stability limitations. A revised version softens those points and moves the largest risk into an appendix. I can share both with timestamps. Owen's mouth tightened. Why would anyone revise it? Before I could answer, Mireya spoke. Quiet, direct. Because we were under pressure to close expansion before quarter end, she said, and I allowed that pressure to shape the reporting. Rafiq stared at her like he'd never seen her. Byron's voice stayed flat. Who applied the pressure? Mireya looked down, then up. Garrick Voss. There was a beat where nobody moved. Then Owen said, Garrick isn't on this call? Byron replied, He will be, shortly. Things moved fast after that, not cinematic fast, corporate fast. The kind of fast that happens when risk leaders smell exposure. Byron asked for the files. I sent them to the client's secure inbox. Mireya forwarded them too. Owen asked to pause the expansion decision until they reviewed. Mireya agreed without protest. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Garrick. "Step outside, now." I stood. Mireya's eyes tracked me. She didn't stop me. She didn't rescue me. She just held herself upright like a person accepting the cost of finally telling the truth. I walked into the hallway and Garrick was already there, smiling like this was casual. He lowered his voice. "What did you think you were doing?" "Answering a direct question," I said. His smile hardened. "You embarrassed leadership in front of a client." "You edited testing summaries," I replied. He leaned closer. "You're an analyst. You don't set narrative." I looked him in the eye. "I set records." His jaw tightened. "You're done on this account." "I can be reassigned," I said, "but the documents exist." Garrick stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed once. Cold. "You think documentation protects you," he said. "It protects whoever leadership decides it protects." That's when I understood the game. He wasn't angry about truth. He was angry about control. I went back into the room. The call ended politely. Hawthorne didn't sign. They scheduled a risk review session instead, and as soon as we disconnected, the chaos turned inward. Rafiq muttered, "We're dead." Mireya closed her laptop carefully. "No," she said. "We're exposed. There's a difference." In corporate life, loud arguments fade fast. What remains is what you can produce. Versions, timestamps, approvals, and who changed what. If someone asks you to simplify, keep your original. If someone asks you to align, ask what they want removed. Calm records beat panic speeches. By lunchtime, legal was involved. Not because we called them, because Hawthorne did. By the end of the day, Garrick wasn't yelling anymore. He was quiet, and quiet in executives is never comfort. That night, I stopped being the hero. I stopped trying to save the deal. I started making sure the consequences landed where they belonged. The next week felt like a different universe. No pep talks. No, we'll bounce back. Just meetings with legal, compliance, delivery, and leadership, all asking the same question in different fonts. How did this happen? The answer was simple. Pressure plus permission. Mireya and I were interviewed separately. Rafiq too. Our team lead, a cautious woman named Aloan Parr, sat in and took notes like she was writing a report for a regulator. Nobody asked me to apologize. Nobody asked me to soften anything. When legal gets involved, they stop caring about feelings and start caring about exposure. Garrick tried to frame it as a miscommunication. He said the edits were clarifications. He implied I was overly rigid. Then legal pulled the version history, and the story collapsed under its own timestamps. Hawthorne sent a formal notice. They were pausing expansion, continuing only the base scope under stricter controls, and requiring an independent risk review before any additional spend. That cost Lattice North money. It also saved them from worse. Because during the risk review, Hawthorne discovered something we hadn't even reached yet. A vendor integration we planned for Phase 2 had a licensing issue that would have triggered audit findings if it went live under Hawthorne's environment. If Hawthorne had signed expansion in that Friday meeting, and that issue surfaced later, it would have been a public mess. Contracts, blame, refunds, reputational damage. Byron Hale sent one short email to Elowen and legal. "Thank you for transparency before signature. We consider this a trust-preserving action." Trust-preserving. Those words did more for my career than any smiling status update ever had. 2 days later, Garrick was placed on leave pending review. That's the phrase companies use when someone's power is already gone, but HR needs time to tidy it. Mireya wasn't fired. She was removed from delivery leadership and moved into an internal controls program. Still employed, no longer steering deals. She came to my desk late one evening, eyes tired. "I tried to carry it," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. She nodded once. "Thank you for not letting me pin it on you." I wasn't doing you a favor, I said. I was stopping a scapegoat story. She almost smiled, then didn't. Same outcome. A week after that, Alawan called me into her office. She didn't waste time. I'm building a delivery integrity process. 2-person review on client-facing readiness summaries. Formal sign-off logs. Controlled artifact storage. I want you running it. I stared at her. That's not a small role. It becomes small, she said. If the wrong people control it, you won't. I accepted. The irony was clean. The skill Garrick dismissed, records, versions, calm reporting, became the thing the company needed to avoid repeating the disaster. Hawthorne didn't leave. They stayed with reduced scope, then expanded later, after the risk review, after fixes, after sober planning. And when they finally signed Phase 2, Owen Klein added a line at the end of the call. Calder, I'm glad you were in the room that day. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just closed my laptop and let the calm settle. Because the satisfaction wasn't that someone got punished. It was that the system worked once someone refused to lie for it. People like to think karma looks like shouting and dramatic firings. Most of the time, karma is quieter. A signature that doesn't happen. A version history that can't be denied. A leader who loses control because the record tells the story without them. And the best part? From that day on, nobody in my company ever asked me to clean up a truth. They asked me to document it properly. What I learned is simple. You can survive almost any corporate storm if you control your artifacts. Keep originals. Save version history. Write meeting notes like they might be read in a legal review. When someone pushes you to align, ask what they want removed and why. Because sooner or later, the truth shows up. The only question is whether it shows up with your name attached to the lie or attached to the record. If you enjoy dramatized office stories where evidence, a cool head, and the right corporate moves win, hit like and subscribe to Stories at Work. Here we break down situations where documents, timestamps, and accountability decide everything without unnecessary noise, but with real satisfaction in the end.